Hey there, Kevin Colby here, and so glad you are there. Welcome to a special edition of my live show, my stream. I say that as I don't really have a consistent day to live stream, but today we are talking about podcasts on YouTube, or as I titled this, and I was kind of hearing it like the best place to podcast is YouTube. Yep. So I want to dive into this. And now, what I would love to know, whether you're watching this live or on the replay, and either way, thank you very much for watching. Do you have a podcast? Let me know. Don't drop a link to it, but just let me know, yes, if you have a podcast or no. And if you have it on YouTube, because one of the things I want to do in this video today is really show you, at least try and convince you to think video for your podcast, and also to really be thinking about putting it on YouTube. And I'll share I'm going to share a couple of articles that kind of sparked this this week, including YouTube really going in on the cha-ching for podcasters. And by the way, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Make sure you say hey in the comments, and I'll jump into the comments here in just a bit. So a little about me and why I love podcasts. Now, I love video, but I also love audio. So when I got into media, I started in radio. In fact, I grew up, well, I wanted to be a lot of things growing up, but one of the things I wanted to be was a DJ. And I would play DJ in my bedroom. I had a stack of 45s, and if you don't, it's not the gun. They're little bitty records. And you may say, "What the heck is a record?" And I don't know how to help you. Just Google that. But I used to play DJ in my bedroom, and I'd play my records, and I would introduce them. And I was just fascinated with radio, and that's how I got into media. My first job ever was at a radio station, and I was on radio for years and loved it. And then I got into TV and thought, "Ooh, this is even better. There's pictures." A few years ago, got back into radio at a pretty dominant radio station, and worked there for several months, and it was fun. I just kind of wanted to see if I could still do it. I share all that to say that's why podcasting for me has always been intriguing and interesting. I haven't been consistent with it until recently, but to me, podcasting is really kind of a form of talk radio. Maybe the good kind, not the bad kind where we're yelling at people, but if you think about it, it's a lot of times it's conversations. Now, I realize there's podcasts that have gone huge, like what's the one? Cereal? Is that it? I didn't, not to be confused with cereal that I ate this morning, but the cereal one. But I think most of the podcasts I listen to are conversations. And some of them, I mean, I subscribe to a lot. Rob Balasabas is one. As soon as I started, I think Media. I think who else has one? Social Media Examiner has one. Pat Flynn. And there's several other ones that I love. Mike Rowe, I love Mike Rowe. Well, a lot of them are conversations, or actually in Mike Rowe's case, there are also stories as well, even though he's changed his format. And podcasts allow you for a different level of engagement, where you're listening. And so typically what I do in the mornings when I get up, before anybody else is up, before I have to take care of our little dude to start the day, is I get on the treadmill for about a half hour, pop my earbuds in, and I listen to a podcast. After that, I do a Devo, but but it's just something cool to be able to listen to conversations and get at the meat of things and stuff like that. Well, YouTube so let me back up. So there are podcasts on YouTube. I mean, there are. I mean, the Think Media podcast is on YouTube. They have their own separate channel. I saw recently that Pat Flynn, his is Smart Passive Income. He's rolling that off as a separate channel, and I'm going to share my thoughts on that in just a second. Not about Pat, but just channel or not. Sorry. And So there are already podcasts on there, but this is about YouTube really getting serious about podcasts on YouTube. Now, I want to share something because this isn't one of those like I told you so moments, but it is kind of like a little validation, if you will. So there's this book called, can you see it? 100 Live Streaming and Digital Media Predictions by my friend Ross Brand. This is actually the first edition. He did a second one. I'm in this book. I think it's the first book I've ever been in, other than the Who's Who's in America after college that, I think everybody gets in if they've got a credit card. I'm just saying. But I'm actually in this book. And by the way, I should, you know what? I'll put a link to this one and his new one down in the description. I forgot to do that. This is really a great book. And I'm not saying that because I'm in it, but there are a ton of folks. A lot of them I know, some I don't. And it's really cool to see the predictions. Now, I want you to read this. I don't know if you can see this, but just proving it. I'll show my picture. You see the one highlighted? That's me. That's me. I want to read this prediction. So this prediction was a year ago, 2 years ago, something like that. Page 269. It's like I'm going to do a reading. Today we'll be reading from. All right. So look, just to prove it, there's my mug. Can you see it? Right there. Right there. I want to read what my prediction was. You ready? I believe we'll see YouTube starting a podcast only option. I wish I was this good when I actually would buy lottery tickets. I believe we'll see YouTube starting a podcast only option. Video podcasts are growing. This is what I said then. This is what I still believe. Spotify is making big moves. Hello, Joe Rogan. Apple isn't invested, and it makes sense for YouTube and Google to look that way. Now you have the video, long and short form, community boards, which are little blogs, memberships, think Patreon. Why not bring in podcasting to the mix? Then I said, because I'm just this way. You heard it here first. So it appears to be happening. And here's an article I wanted to share. From this one goes back to October 26, 2021. And this is from Tube Filter, which, by the way, is a great email. If you don't get it, I would recommend it. The headline: YouTube has hired its first podcast executive. According to Hot Pod, the podcast newsletter The Verge acquired, they hired a YouTube staffer, and I'm going to take a shot at the name, Kaya Chuck. Check this out. A YouTube spokesperson said that Chuck, who'd been with YouTube for almost a decade and has largely worked on media partnerships, will now, quote, manage the large volume of existing podcasts and relationships across the YouTube platform. Did you catch that? So basically what ended up happening is that YouTube hired somebody from within to head up podcast. And that was last year. So prior to that, I thought this has got to be happening. So let me tell you a little bit of the reason. And I alluded to it in the open, or in that my comment, right? So one of the things I was jumping in to look at some, by the way, and if you're already watching, thank you very much. And we'll jump into some stuff. If you have any questions about any of this, please drop it, whether you're watching this on the live or the replay. One of the things that I think has kind of created this need for YouTube is the exit of Joe Rogan. Now, you've probably heard of Joe Rogan. You may have watched Joe Rogan. In fact, Joe Rogan just did an interview with Mr. Beast, so I can't wait to watch that. And basically, Spotify gave him a boatload of money to move his original content to Spotify. I forgot how much it was. It was more money than I'll ever see in my lifetime. And so now Joe Rogan has a video podcast on Spotify. It's both, it's audio and video. I personally think, because Joe Rogan, I mean, even though his videos, his back catalog, I still think in pieces and parts is still on YouTube. I don't think it's been removed. If I'm wrong on that, let me know in the comments. But that's a big deal. Now, there have been gamers in the past that have left YouTube and come back. You know, they've gone to other platforms and then they just kind of imploded and they come back. You know, there's not really a platform out there like YouTube. Now, we can get into a debate about TikTok. We can talk about Facebook. We can talk about Instagram. And yeah, I realize that even TikTok, you know, has overtaken YouTube in some ways. But when it comes down to being a search engine where you can find stuff, where your videos can live forever, it's called evergreen, where you have the potential to make money, connect with other people, I got to tell you, there is absolutely no platform like YouTube. Now, do I dabble in the other ones? Absolutely. But YouTube is my core platform. So I think personally, when Spotify bought away Joe Rogan, YouTube, that may have been the precipice. Is that the word I'm looking for? That YouTube said, okay, we need to really take this serious. Now, I'm sure there was a lot more than that. But if you really think about YouTube right now, obviously, number 2 search engine in the world, I still think the best place to put video. And if you don't think that, I'm going to challenge you to go try and find something on LinkedIn. Go try and find something on YouTube. Go try and find something on Instagram. And you may go, well, you can use hashtags. Yeah, but is that a great way to search? I can go to YouTube and type in how to set up a GoPro 10, and I'm going to get videos. I can even just type in GoPro 10, and that gives YouTube enough information that they'll go, okay, maybe you're looking for this, and then they kind of start dialing. You can't find stuff like that on the other ones. I mean, I am not exaggerating, guys. I've actually had friends who have posted stuff on LinkedIn and told me they can't even find it. That's pathetic. But anyway, that's a different rant. Sorry, I was thirsty. So what I think is when you look at YouTube and you've got the best place for video, the best place I think still to earn money on a platform, the best place to connect, then you roll in the community tab, which I realize you only get at a certain level. Then you roll in memberships, and then you roll in shorts, which are now huge, which is still video, but it's a different way of reaching people. You can live stream, things like that. What's the one piece that's missing? It's podcasting. And people are already putting podcasts on YouTube. So to me, it's like, I'm not surprised that it was coming. So the second piece of this puzzle dropped this week, and I thought, oh my, and it was this. YouTube, well, the headline, YouTube to podcasters, give us videos and we'll give you up to $300,000. Now, this is still so new. I don't know, honestly, how this is all going to work out. The article goes in to explain a little bit more, but just I want to share this with you. And by the way, both of these articles, these blog posts, there's links to those down in the description. So make sure you're watching, or if you want to read a little bit more on your own. And it talks about the Spotify thing in here. According to Bloomberg, now the original article was on Bloomberg, and I was going to show you Bloomberg's screen, but holy crap, there were so many stinking ads on there that it was annoying. And so here's a side rant. You know, if you run a publication, I know you've got to make money, but for all that's holy, for the people like me that just want to read the article, stop with the pop-ups, stop with all the ads so we can read the article. Okay, I'm done with my aside. According to Bloomberg, YouTube is offering to pay individual podcasters and podcasting networks if they upload video versions of their shows. Video versions of their shows. These grants could range from $50,000 for independent creators to $300,000 for larger networks. Now, it's talking about here, YouTube's video platform is arguably its most competitive advantage over Spotify, and promoting podcast content on the platform would help the Google-owned company accomplish several goals. And it talks about different things and stuff like that. And, there's already, we know that in a lot of ways that YouTube is far more, I think, for the creator because of their partner program than these other ones. And if you don't believe that, just look for look for a video that a guy named Hank Green did. I think it was called TikTok Sucks, but it was talking about how as big as you can be on TikTok, you're only going to make so much. Now, this isn't a bashing on TikTok. I'm still trying to figure it out. In fact, next week I've got an interview with a guy named Austin Armstrong, and it'll be live on my channel about just how he's crushing it on TikTok, and he's got some great insight, and he's built a business around it. So I don't doubt that. But when you look at YouTube, holy cow. So the article also goes into to mention that, they hired Kai Chuck, and it's already kind of a page on here. There's a blank page. So I'm sharing all this to say that I really do believe that if you're podcasting, you need to be thinking video. And if you're doing video podcasting, you need to be thinking YouTube. Now, I have a, and I'm going to share a little bit what I'm doing and how I'm reacting to this too. I don't think this is one of those things that YouTube will stop on. Now, this is my gut. All platforms, including YouTube, they'll roll things out. They'll try things. In fact, if you don't subscribe to the Creator Insider channel and you've got a YouTube channel, you need to subscribe to that because they drop great information about things going on, and it's phenomenal. And they'll throw out things, hey, we're working on this, we're working on that. And sometimes the things come and go, or they'll say, this is totally an experiment. We don't know if it's going to last. Sorry, great ice sound, huh? But let's talk about shorts for a second. I don't think shorts is going anywhere. Now, it may not be the thing a year or two from now, but as long as people use their phones this way, vertical video is here to stay. Still not my favorite format. I love landscape, but it's here to stay. Will shorts be as big as it's always been? I don't know. But shorts is just another form of video, right? There's short form video and then there's shorts. I don't see the podcast going away because in fact, you're going to get a kick out of this here in just a second. You know what? Let me go ahead and show you this right now. Let me go to that and we'll use that instead. So check this out. So if you go to shorts, so I don't know if you knew you could do this, but if you go to YouTube and you in the search bar, you type in hashtag. And again, I know hashtags is one of those things. I'm starting to use them a little. I think I put hashtag Kevin Colby on all my videos. I don't know that hashtags on YouTube have ever become the thing that they are on some other platforms. But check this out. Shorts. Can you see the number at the top? If you type in hashtag shorts, right now there's 194 million videos that are shorts. And remember, a short by definition is a minute or under. If it goes over a minute, it's not a short, and it has to be vertical. So if we look at all these, holy cow, it just goes on. And of those, the channels represented is 11 million channels. Now, you may say, well, then why do shorts? Well, I've had some shorts that have done decent views and then other ones that don't. Quite honestly, I would say keep doing them. But I want you to see this. So keep that number in mind. And now look at this, podcasts. So in other words, there is a hashtag podcast. Is it podcasts? Yeah, podcasts. 57,000 videos, right under 10,000 channels. Now, there's some ones on here you might recognize. Thought I did this earlier and I saw a couple I recognized. I thought I saw, well, I don't see those popping in now. Oh, look at that, there's NBC News. So I share this to say that I think the field is right. That you could feasibly start a podcast, and think about that. It's a thing. YouTube has hired a CEO to oversee podcasts on its channel. YouTube has said, hey, we're going to set aside a ton of money to pay creators to do podcasts on YouTube. I've had several friends who say and believe. Now, you have to decide what works for you. Whenever a platform goes in on something, you need to pay attention. When Instagram went in on Reels and they made it a thing, pay attention. When YouTube's gone in on Shorts, pay attention. I mean, there's things like that when they start playing with it and you can adapt to it if it works for you. Now, I know of channels that have created or creators that have created their own Shorts channels. I'm not going to do that, but that's a whole different topic. So what I would recommend is, well, let me just get into the recommendations here, because I think this is going to be really important. And before I do that, let me say hey to some folks in there. We got Craig Colley Music, and we got my friend. Oh, I always struggle saying your name. I am so sorry. Zolma, I think that's it. And then Eileen Smith, Miss Eileen. I got to tell you, and I'm going to shout her out here in just a second, because she turned me on to something that I'm using for my media hub. So, but let's kind of get into some recommendations. So I would start a podcast. Now, you may say, well, what would I podcast about? Well, you've got to figure that out. I I have 4 podcasts. Now, one's not active anymore. One I haven't done much with. I've just started a recent video podcast with a friend of mine. He's a filmmaker in LA. It's called Funny Blue Pizza, but it's all kind of about the entertainment industry and movie industry and stuff like that. He's on one coast. I'm on the East Coast. I come from more of a TV production background. He comes from movies, and that's what we talk about. In fact, I got to plug this. We just interviewed, his name is John Bailey. He goes by Epic Voice Guy. He's the voice guy on Honest Trailers, and it was the absolute funniest 30 minutes I think I laughed the whole time. Hopefully you can hear him. And then I have my own new one that, if you'll allow me, I'll plug right here. It's called the Pro Creative Video Podcast. And it's all about just helping people that are serious about video. I mean, there's tips and there's advice in there. There's guests. I've got a couple of folks coming up, some other ones lined up. And Miss Eileen, you're on my list. I'd love to get you on there. So you can podcast about anything, absolutely anything. It could be very niche driven. I've shared with, I mean, it's no secret if you've watched probably 5 minutes of my stuff, we have 3 kids and my youngest has special needs. And I have wanted for a long time to start a podcast about special needs with my wife. She's just not interested in it. She's far smarter than I am, and beautiful and smart. Did I mention that? But she's just not interested in that. I've convinced her to do a couple of videos, and that's about it. She's always happy when they're over. But it's so easy to start a podcast, and that's going to be one of the points here. But think about the things that you can go more in detail in terms of your business or your nonprofit or your passion. I know Eileen has one, and it's phenomenal. It's called I think it's the Anchor Show. Let me know if I'm wrong on that, but I think it's called the Anchor Show. And just think about being able to talk and connect with somebody. There is something, remember I talked about, starting in radio before television. There's something about talking in a mic to someone where they're listening that's just completely different. Eileen's saying she loves the cover art. Thank you very much. So what I would do is figure out if you can convert maybe your blog to a podcast or something like that. But if you're ready to start and you haven't started, so here's the first thing I would recommend is I would start a podcast on Anchor. Can I get an amen from the crowd? Why? Well, I'm glad you asked. Anchor to me is the absolute freaking easiest way to do a podcast. I mean, it is. That's the only F word I use. It is. I mean, you can start, you have to have an email address. You got an email address, then you can start a podcast on, or you can start an account on Anchor. Now, Anchor has changed a little. So, so Anchor got acquired by Spotify, I don't know, a year or two ago, which is amazing. I mean, did you hear me say that? Anchor is owned by Spotify. And you know how much Anchor costs? Free. Zero. It doesn't cost anything. You got to be kidding. What's the catch? There's no catch. You can have a podcast on Anchor for free. You get your own little website. In fact, look, what I was sharing you a second ago, that's my website. That's my Anchor website, right? That's it. Has links to my my social media right there. I keep, like, you can see my pointer, or can you see my pointer? Yeah, you can. It's got links to my my social media, whatever I want to. You can leave me a message on there. There's links to wherever it is right there. I mean, and all of that, guys, that's free. Absolutely free. It is so easy to set up one on there. Now, what changed a little was, and this, I think this happened a few months ago, excuse me. Anchor used to take care of all the distribution. In other words, you would sign up and they would send it out to all the platforms. Well, now that's changed. So what they do is they give you the link. It's called something fancy. It's RSS feed. But they give you the link, and then you can submit it to all of those platforms. Well, before that, if you had a podcast on there, it's grandfathered in, because then they go to places I've never heard of, like, is it Beaker and Cast, Overcast? I don't know what they are. But anyway, but if you look here at this one, you notice it's Apple, Google, Spotify, and then there's an RSS feed. Spotify was automatic. So basically, once my podcast got approved and I had a couple of episodes, excuse me, I took the link. Mute the mic, Kevin. Be a nice host. I took the link and I submitted it to Apple and I submitted it to Google, and it got approved. It's all free. It's all free. So again, I go back to, if you're going to start a podcast, start it on Anchor. And again, owned by Spotify, you're going to get Spotify. You're going to get Spotify as part of the deal. If you don't want Spotify, I got nothing for you. And you know what Spotify's goal is? To take down Apple. Hello. And so they are really, really leaning into that. Second thing is, I would consider making it a video podcast. Why not? Why not? Because, well, Kevin, what if I'm just talking and I don't have a host? Okay, look at the camera. That's what I do. In fact, one of the ones I did the other day, it's called 5 Powerful Words You Should Always Ask. I was moved about something. I scribbled out some notes, and I'm talking to the camera just like I'm doing right here. But I rolled video. In fact, I think that one I may have just rolled on my webcam. Make it a video podcast. I would consider starting a YouTube channel or add it to an existing channel. Remember, YouTube has an exec that their job is podcasts on YouTube. YouTube has announced a fund to pay people to get them on here. Don't know how it's going to work yet, but I'm okay with that. So far, I don't think they have not paid when they said they're going to. Does that make sense? Heck, I've got a friend who doesn't even have a huge YouTube channel that's already made some money off the Shorts fund. But start a YouTube channel. So remember, I mentioned a few minutes ago that I co-host this new video podcast called Funny Blue Pizza with a friend of mine, Christopher Sean Shaw. And so our podcast lives on 2 places. We started a YouTube channel, and it's on Anchor. Well, and it's also on Spotify because of that. But you see where I'm going with that, right? We're not going to fool with the other platforms. So we want to be in place in case it gets that way. Now, I also threw in there, or add to your existing channel, because I have made the decision recently, and I'm sure There's going to be folks out there that would absolutely tell me I'm nuts, and that's fine. In fact, hang on. There are folks that would argue you want to have a separate channel for your podcast. I know specifically why Sean Cannell and the Think Media team rolled theirs off. He actually did a video about it because they felt like it was different enough, different enough from the Think Media, what they were going to do. But what I have decided to do is, and I actually created the channel for the Pro Creative Video Podcast. And then I thought the other day, nope, because it's in line with what I'm doing on this channel. It's in line with helping people create content. It's in line with, people that are new and beginning and stuck. That's what it is. In fact, I've got an interview coming up with Austin Armstrong. I've got an interview coming up with Rob Balasabas. And I've got 2 or 3 other ones already planned. And I'm going to email Miss Eileen the minute this is over. We're not talking about gardening. We're not talking about anything else. We're talking about video and content and audio. Those will live on this channel. Well, Kevin, might it hurt your views? Maybe, but then again, it's content. And I've stopped chasing the algorithm, and I'm trying to produce for you, for people. So I share all that to say, whatever you decide to do, though, if you're like, well, I've got I do a video on photography, a YouTube channel photography, but I really would like maybe to do a podcast on gardening because I like both. Well, then maybe you want to separate that. You decide that, but why not start it on YouTube? I would consider using apps like Streamyard or Ecamm Live to record. Now, I say that, and by the way, there's affiliate links to both in the description. And you may say, well, Kevin, I bet that's why you're mentioning them, because if I use your link, no, those are my 2 favorite apps for live streaming and recording video. Every video podcast I have out there, especially with a guest, I've used Streamyard. I did one called 2 Guys Talking About. We use Streamyard. Funny Blue Pizza, Streamyard. Pro Creative Video. I think I've used Ecamm a couple of times, but if there's a guest involved, I use Streamyard. Because you know why? Streamyard is just easy. It's just easy. It's so easy to bring a guest in. And there's also benefits of that too, even with Ecamm, because when you're done, you get the file. So, look, guys, I know there's other platforms out there. I'm not going to talk bad about any of them. I mean, I've done some work for BeLive, and the team's great. I haven't worked for Restream, but I know it's a solid product. I don't know that much about Melon. And there's also programs out there like Riverside.fm. That's phenomenal. I was just interviewed on a podcast yesterday, and the guy used Zencaster, which now has video as part of it. I will say this, though. Don't make your life difficult. If you're going to do a video podcast, pick a platform that has video. I also like StreamYard and Ecamm Live because they are video first apps. Does that make sense? In other words, it wasn't like an audio app that added video. Nothing wrong with that, but the video part's really going to work. And one of the things I do in StreamYard is, so after I record my podcast, and let me know in the comments if you'd ever like to see kind of my flow of this, and I'd be happy to show you. But what I do is after I record it, you can download it. Now you can download it as video and you can download it as audio. I'm going to show you something here in just a second. But the last one is, don't worry about the gear. Don't worry about the gear. Don't worry about the gear. I'd love it if somebody would type that in the comments. Don't worry about the gear. I have recorded my podcasts on my phone. I have recorded it sitting right here using this camera, which is the M50 Mark II. I have used it using my webcam, which right now is mounted as my overhead camera. How else have I done it? In fact, there's a friend of mine that has one that he actually has decided he's just going to pop a Rode mic on and walk around and do it. Yes, we can get into a debate about audio quality and things like that. But if you concentrate on your message and bringing value to your audience and connecting, this may seem a little off subject, but I think it goes in with this conversation. One of the groups I was in a few minutes ago, somebody said, hey, guys, when you shoot a bunch of videos, your batch video, batch producing. That's what it's called, right? When you shoot like 3 or 4 videos back to back. Do you change clothes? And people are in there going, oh yeah, I do all the time, yada, yada, yada. I used to, and I said, I don't fool with it anymore because I think that's one of those things we as creators get wound up about. Well, I'm wearing the same shirt. If somebody is not watching your video because you have the same shirt on you did somewhere else, you're not connecting with that person. I'm sorry to deliver the bad news, but you're not. Now, I realize I have a lot of Batman shirts because I like Batman. People may not like Batman. That's okay. That's all right. Free country so far. You don't have to like Batman. I will pray for you, though. But don't get caught up on that. It's more important for you to get your message out there. Or as I like to say, share your gifts so you can impact the world. Use what you've got. Now, I want to show you something. Oh, you know what? Yeah, I can show you this too. So one of the things that Spotify recently did is they opened up. It's not in beta, but they call it like early access. So now you can do video podcasts on Spotify. So I tell you what, let's try. I didn't plan on this. So let me go back to this and see if this works. So I'm going to link to here and I will share that. So this is my podcast on Spotify. Well, if you notice right here, if I click this, now let's say I should have prepared this. Will it launch there is a video version of this, I think. There, right there. Well, hey there. Kevin Colby here, and this is a new episode of the Pro Creative Video Podcast. Now, that is a video podcast on Spotify. I don't honestly think it's as intuitive to find as I'm going to get off this. I don't think it's intuitive to find as being on YouTube. But again, this is a feature of Anchor. So I actually got access to being able to have a video podcast on Spotify for my old. So I have another podcast called Real Creative Life, and I'm not shutting it down. That one's kind of, I almost treat it like my audio journal. I've got to close this because it's playing. It's driving me. I can see the video down in the corner. But that one is just more kind of like I call it my audio journal. But all of a sudden one day I opened up Anchor and I got, hey, you've got access to it. So I applied and I've got it. And so I applied the other day for my Pro Creative Video Podcast and I got access. And what that means now is when I upload a video, so I go back to the Streamyard, Ecamm, however you want to do it. You can do it QuickTime. You can do it however you want it to. I upload the video file to Anchor. And what it does is it creates the video and the audio version. I don't do anything else. Now, you don't have to. You can just do the audio. So just like that, what I have then is a video podcast on Spotify. You can just listen to it. You can just watch it. But now what I do is I also take that and I'm not reformatting that. I'm turning that into a post on my YouTube channel. So that's why I say, if Spotify is doing this, I'm not surprised that YouTube is doing this too. You don't have to overthink this. You can really just kind of do it. So I'm going to hop in here just a little bit and see. Thing about podcasts, I need to learn more about it. I'm sure. Yeah. So, and that's the thing. Like with anything, there are things you need to figure out. But, I personally think podcasting can be somewhat easier than video. Now, I also realize I'm very talkative and I come from a radio background. So I don't want to act like, oh, yeah, you just do that and that's it. Oh, yes. And Miss Eileen is saying, yes, it is the Anchor Show is her podcast. And I think that is phenomenal. Oh, I knew I forgot to share something. So Eileen, since you're in here, I want to do this. So I use Anchor, but I'm going to take this one step further and I want to share something with you that, where is it? That's it right there. All right. So thanks to Miss Eileen, I found this site called Podpage. Oops, there it is, Podpage. And Podpage is really meant as a home for podcasts. And I got looking at it and I'm like, woo, this is really, really nice. And so now what I have done is I have turned Podpage into my media hub. So if you actually type in kevincolbymedia.com, you're going to go right there. Well, what I do on there is it has all my podcasts. So what it does is it pulls in the podcast from Anchor. It'll pull them in from anywhere. Each one has its own page. Look at that. Each episode, the one I just shared, there it is. You can play it right there. There's the audio. It pulls in your notes. But here's what I also love. You're gonna love this. It pulls in all of my YouTube videos. Guys, I don't do a thing. I'm lazy. I'm gonna say it right now. I'm lazy. It has a blog. I haven't done a lot with the blog, but you can do a lot of different things. The reason I meant, and you can leave a message, a voice message. So think about that. You can actually leave a voice message on Kevin Colby Media on there that then I can use in a podcast. In fact, I would love to have you do that. Go test it out. Go to kevincolbymedia.com and drop a comment in there. Rob Balasabas did, and I turned it into a podcast. I share that to say, first of all, Miss Eileen, thank you very much. And yes, I do have an affiliate link to that, but it is a phenomenal way to build around that. Now, if you don't have a podcast, Podpage is not for you. Podpage is really, really built for podcasts, but then you can do other things. So that's something to think about. Eileen's saying that Spotify acquired Anchor in 2019. Wow. I didn't realize that. 3 years ago. Yeah, Think Media has a huge team and loyal following, so they have the resources spin-offs. That is true. I remember though Sean saying that the reason they spun it off is because they felt like they were getting too into marketing that, because Think Media, which I love their stuff, is about the gear and the tech, where the Think Media podcast, but they also decided to call it the Think Media podcast. So, hashtag don't worry about the gear. That's right. So we have, I'm going to say Kowalika. And again, I apologize. I'm horrible with names. I love your little picture though. I love using Ecamm virtual camera with StreamYard. Oh, and Zoom calls. See, that's another great example that you can actually use the power of Ecamm with StreamYard. I've done that some. It's a great reminder. I probably ought to do that more. And yeah, you're right. Yeah, Eileen's saying, I love Podpage. I'm glad you gave it a try. And yeah, it was because, and here's the thing. Eileen shared one of her podcast episodes on Twitter. I love to see what people are using, not only the gear, but the apps, but their sites. Maybe I'm a stalker. I don't know. K-Walk Comedy. It's kind of funny that I messed up your name. Thank you very much. I apologize, but thank you. But I saw her podcast and I went there and I'm like, ooh, this doesn't look like Anchor's homepage. And I checked it out and I'm like, I like it. Now, I can tell you right now, I don't mind sharing this. I'm paying for that site. Let me just show it to you one more time, just because I want you to get how cool it is. I put the header in. There's a lot of other stuff on here. There's even ways to you can buy me a coffee on here. You see all this stuff on here. I'm right now using Podia as my other site. That's the email embedded in there. There's a contact form. Look at this. You can drop me a contact. So right now, because I got it on a discount, I'm paying $130 a year for this site. $130 a year for a site that automatically pulls in my podcast, automatically pulls in my YouTube videos, has a blog element. You can share individually from there. People can leave voice messages. People can donate. $130 a year. I don't go to Starbucks, but my thinking is that's about 2 coffees at Starbucks. I'm joking. I know it's not that much. I hope you like that K-Walk Comedy. I did that for you. But I share that to say, let's get back to YouTube. YouTube, I think, is getting ready. I don't know. I don't know that they will go as all in on podcasts as they have shorts. But look, if you go, I mean, if you go back to uh right here, those are podcasts already using the podcast hashtag, right? So I can tell you this much right now that most episodes of my new podcast, the Pro Creative Video Podcast, which I would love to have you check out. Most episodes of those, especially with video involved, will live on this channel, on the Kevin Colby YouTube channel, and I will be using the hashtag podcast or podcasts, whichever one, just to see if it surfaces in there, because it's still such a small, untapped world. So if you haven't started a podcast, I'd consider it. I would still make video your king, and I would still really focus on YouTube. So I wouldn't recommend doing this if it detracted you from your main focus. For me, it's no big deal just to turn on, and that sounded really cocky. I didn't mean that, but for me, it's no big deal just to turn on a camera, and if I've got something I want to share, I can share it. Not every podcast episode I do will be about with a guest. In fact, one of my little tips, one of the things I do is a lot of times after I've done a live stream, especially if it's something like I'm sharing information or something like that, if I can't convert this to the podcast, which sometimes I have, I'll just record another version. As soon as this is over, I'll just fire the camera back up. I'll start a new recording. I'll do a video podcast version of what we just talked about, maybe not as long, and I'll upload that to Anchor. And then all of a sudden that goes over here, and bada bing, bada boom. There is money to be made there. A friend of mine asked me the other day, why are you doing a podcast? I said, it's another medium that I can reach more people differently, that has the potential to make money and help people. I'm a business. I got family to feed, so I'm okay about that. So I hope this helps you out. I hope it makes you kind of think about it. YouTube's going in on it. So if you have a podcast you haven't added video to, consider adding video. If you have a video podcast and you haven't been putting it on YouTube, my recommendation is put it on YouTube. Start your own channel, make it part of your channel. Mine's going to be part of mine. And I know there's people out there that'll say you're making a big mistake, but that's okay. It's my channel. I'm going to be okay with it. I'm going to live. But anyway, thank you so much for watching this. Thank you for the comments, being a part of this. And if you're watching this on the replay, let me know what you think. And there's links to both articles in there that I shared, links to my gear, and check out the podcast too. I mean, seriously, check out the podcast and let me know what you think. If you have any ideas for future episodes, I'd love that too. If anything here helped you out, consider subscribing as well. Remember, keep using your gifts so you can make an impact in the world. I'm Kevin, and we'll